More than 50% of the population in the United States have issues with attachment, and that means how it is that they form emotional bonds with other people. And this is so important because it impacts our relationships with our romantic partners, our friends, our colleagues, and of course, our relationship to ourselves and self-esteem. So my name is Bev. I created this channel to talk all things about attachment styles and how it impacts us throughout our life and our different life cycles. If this is something that is of interest to you, please give us a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends if you think it's worth sharing. Let's dive in. Disorganized attachment is also known as fearful avoidance, which is why we use these words to distinguish from the dismissive avoidance.
Right.
It's also called the anxious avoidance. So there's multiple names, it's all the same thing. What it means is that these individuals have a mix of characteristics of anxious traits and avoidant traits. Now,
Yay.
this is the fourth category. It's estimated that about 10% of our population falls in this category. I myself was also fearful avoidant for many years. I could tell you a couple of things. These children generally had some of the tougher childhoods.
Hmm.
They generally have the most core wounds and some of the deepest core wounds. And so, when I work with fearful avoidance, I have a lot of empathy. I've been there myself. It is, it's tough to go through this, but it can be overcome. Now, how does this actually come about? Generally, the pattern that we see is when there is abuse in a home towards a child. Now, it can be, we know that abuse can take on many different forms, verbal, physical, emotional. It could be sexual. It could be all of the above. But I want to take a moment so that you and your audience understand just how sad this is for a child. Because let's say we're talking about, again, a little boy, let's say a 4-year-old boy and his mummy. Now, his mummy is supposed to be his safe place to land in the world, right? His comfort. And so maybe he's outside riding his bike and he falls and he skins his knee and he comes in and he's crying and just wants a little bit of comfort. There are some mothers that will turn around and say, "Stop crying," and smack the child across the face.
Yeah.
Now, what this does in the child's mind is it scrambles their psyche. That's why it's called disorganized attachment, because the child so deeply wants to connect with that one person that they love more than anything, who can give them safety, but that person is also the one harming them. And the child can't make sense of it. And so what happens is in adulthood, these children grow up to be, at least in a romantic context, they're known as the hot and the cold partner. So they really, really, they crave closeness, but they deeply fear intimacy. And so metaphorically, again, they really want that closeness. Most humans do, but they're afraid subconsciously to get too close to you because their patterning is, if I get too close to you, you will slap me across the face. You will, metaphorically, of course,
Right.
but
Right.
you will harm me,
Right.
right? That's all I know to be true. And so they have a very hard time with vulnerability, which is what we see specifically in the dismissive avoidant camp. But they also really crave that interaction and that closeness, which is what we see specifically in the anxious camp. So they're in both. And then, to make things, because people we're not so cut and dry. Everyone's quite nuanced,
Very
right?
true.
And
Yep.
so yeah, so what happens is that we usually have a primary attachment style. I think you mentioned you're fearful avoidance, and then you have a secondary, which means I think you said you're leaning avoidance.
Yeah.
That's very common. right? Now, what would happen in a romantic relationship, let's say you and I are in a romantic relationship and you're fearful, avoidant, leaning, dismissive, right? But I myself am dismissive. Let's say I'm dismissive, avoidant. That's going to trigger the anxious side of your fearful avoidant. And some of your anxious traits will start to activate towards me. Activate means you're going to use strategies to come closer to that person. So if you're interfacing with someone who is dismissive, you're going to become anxious. If
Right.
you're dismissing with someone who's anxious, you're going to stay firm in your dismissive nature,
Right.
right? So that's the oscillation is it depends on who you're interfacing with.